So the first question is, when did I start to explore Mars through NASA photos? I started researching Mars anomalies about 2.5 years ago, and I've got a YouTube channel that's close to 3 years old now. So I was originally inspired by Will Farrar from WhatsUpInTheSky 37. He's also got a YouTube channel, and what he showed us was absolutely incredible. So I was really intrigued by the anomalies and artifacts that he discovered in Curiosity rover photographs. So I decided I'll get into this research and see what else there is in Mars orbiter photographs, and not just in Curiosity and other rover photographs. There's a lot of photographs being analyzed from the rovers, but very few researchers are actually looking at photographs taken from orbit, which is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter in this case. The second question, how did I manage to discover megaliths in Marinus Valley? The anomalies I've discovered on Mars are only discovered because of persistence and patience. It takes hours to analyze just one Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter photograph. The images are high res, typically photographed at 25 centimeters per pixel, and then the photograph itself is about 2 kilometers by 4 kilometers in size. So you can imagine you need lots of time to analyze just one photograph, and I've downloaded hundreds of these JP2 photographs, and of those I can tell you about 2 or 3% have anomalies or artifacts. The rest, you don't find anything of interest. Right, the third question, the pictures of the surface of Mars have been known for a long time. Why has nobody paid attention to the artifacts that you found? I speculate it has to do with the Brookings report that was commissioned in the 30s or 40s, I think it was. And based on the recommendations of that report, I think the space agencies are keeping quiet about these anomalies. They think that the public isn't ready for any of this type of revelation. So it would be intriguing to find out when or how they're going to actually talk about these anomalies. I mean, Elon Musk, SpaceX and other agencies are getting to Mars within the next 10 years or so. So how's this going to be covered up? I'm sure that the other space agencies will find these anomalies and artifacts too. And then how is NASA or the ESA going to answer? Anyway, so the other facet to this is that the people over at NASA or the ESA study the geology and the atmosphere of Mars, and they don't really look at these anomalies or artifacts. I think one of them even said that it's not in their mandate to actually look for artifacts. So they're looking at things with sort of blinders on. And then the other aspect is that when you do approach them and you ask a question, they would typically answer something like, it's pareidolia, which is your mind's imagination to see something that isn't really there. So it's like fighting a losing battle. But the search continues, and researchers like myself will continue revealing our discoveries. And then the fourth question, is there a possibility that the megaliths are discovered were used as part of ancient structures? Absolutely yes. The megalithic blocks I've discovered on Mars are very similar in size and shape and geometry to those that we find in ruins here on Earth, typically South America, Egypt, and other sites like that. The megalithic blocks, for example, are very similar to those that we find in Lebanon. The pregnant woman of the south comes to mind, and then there's another megalithic block very similar to it. We're talking about 4.5 by 4.5 by something like 20 or 22 meters. And the megaliths I find on Mars are pretty much the same size, some a bit smaller. And then also monolithic blocks, oh yes, found many of those as well, as featured in 2001 A Space Odyssey. Found one of those in Asimov crater, very interesting block that. And yes, the other artifacts include things like an Egyptian ankh, you know, the circle with the cross underneath. The Eye of Horus, I found a similar structure like that on Mars as well. It's about 180 meters long, and you can see it's got a sculpted eyebrow. You can see the eyelids and the pupil. Perfect example of a sculpted piece on Mars. And then pyramids, found many of those on Mars as well. Some with blocks that are still intact. You can actually see these blocks still tightly packed next to one another. Those are specifically in Elysium Planitia, near the InSight lander and Curiosity rover. They're in that same region of Mars. And then stone carvings of scarab beetles. I found 2 of those on Mars as well. You find those stone carvings, for example, in the British Museum, and they look identical to those that are found on Mars. Those on Mars are about 12 to 8 meters long. Very interesting to see that as well. Then I'll also speculate that everything on Mars was blown apart through some other catastrophe or catastrophes. Dr. John Brandenburg, for example, suggests or theorizes that there were 2 huge nuclear explosions in the northern mid-latitudes of Mars. And he bases that theory on data that he actually got from NASA. And then also some other scientists over at NASA have suggested there was epic flooding, and I can see that, for example, in the photographs that I've analyzed. Everything seems to be pushed over to one side. You can see most of it's embedded towards the one side, and the other side's always elevated. The right-hand side's always elevated. Very interesting phenomenon. Oh, and NASA also suggests that the anomalies that we're finding on Mars were caused through glacial activity. And a lot of the artifacts I'm finding are in the southern mid-latitudes and on the equator of Mars. So I'm not sure if glacial activity took place on the equator or near the southern mid-latitudes. Surely it's too warm, but anyway, this is what we're dealing with, and the discoveries are being made all the time. Was there a war on the planet in the distant past? Nobody knows for sure, but utter destruction is evident wherever we look, and we don't know for sure. So was it a natural phenomenon, a planetary-wide catastrophe, or was it possibly an interplanetary war? We don't know. But the signs are there that everything's been blown apart. Here and there I find pockets of structures that are still intact. So I do encourage everyone to go and check out all the artifacts and anomalies that researchers like myself are discovering on Mars. Pieces of a puzzle are coming together, and we speculate that there might be links between Mars and Earth. If you look at the structures and rings, they're very similar to those that we find right here on Earth. So the question is there a forgotten history that we don't know about? Hopefully we'll find out one day when we get boots on the ground there on Mars.